Good morning, I'm Nancy McCormick. I'm filling in today for Elmar Dave, who is out of town. And so I'd like to call to order the Truckee Meadows Community College Institutional Advisory Council meeting for August 10th. And I'd like to begin with roll call.
Chair Dave, absent. Nancy McCormick.
Present.
Councilmember Esquada.
Here.
Councilmember Byersdorf.
Present.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Hutter is absent. Councilmember Kamirsky. Absent. Councilmember Macklin.
Here.
Councilmember Meadows.
Here.
Councilmember Nanini. Absent. Councilmember Schilling is absent. And Councilmember Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Woodring, absent. Cynthia Olivo, absent. Mike Holmes, absent. Absidi Vasquez, absent. And Julie Mueller.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Now I'd like to move to agenda item number 2, public comment. Public comment will be taken during this agenda item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item until the matter is included on an agenda as an item on which action may be taken. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name. The council chair may elect to allow additional public comment on a specific agenda item when that agenda item is being considered. My understanding is we have no one on the phone, so do we have anyone in the audience who would like to make public comment during this time?
So I would like to mention that we have a very special guest in our audience today, Karen Gedney, who has recently published a book, 30 Years Behind Bars. And I wanted to say welcome, Karen, and it's so happy to see you here. Some of the TMCC staff have read Karen's book, and they're just, they are just amazed at how great this book is. So I just wanted to call out our special guest. Thank you.
Who, by the way, happened to be a prison doctor to explain the title there.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the lovely wife of our board member, Clifton Macklin. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'd like to advise that we are going to skip agenda item number 3 to approve the minutes. The minutes for those 2 dates noted, February 9th and June 15th, were not included in this package. February was. So we can vote on approval of minutes for February 9th, 2018, but not June 15th. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 9th meeting. The minutes for June 15th will be voted on at the next meeting. I hear a motion from Clifton Macklin to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, John Thurman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now we're actually going to move an agenda item out of order. We are going to move agenda item number 9 up to this spot in the agenda prior to agenda item number 4, and that is due to a scheduling conflict. So we will start with Dr. Melissa Dedmond, Associate Dean of Assessment and Planning, who will be presenting information on industry employer directions.
Good morning, council members, and thank you for accommodating me in the schedule of the agenda. I was asked today to give you a little bit of a sense of the process involved when new curriculum comes to fruition. And so I have a brief diagram here for you that simplifies what unfortunately can be somewhat of a complex process. But to give you a sense, all our curriculum, whether it's new or revisions to existing courses, whether it's bringing forward a new degree or giving revisions to an existing degree or certificate, go through an internal review process. That is by our curriculum review committee, consisting of faculty and student services staff such as advising and admissions and records and financial aid. Once approved by our curriculum review committee, who looks for things like course learning objectives and degree and certificate learning objectives, whether transfer degrees have adequate suggested course sequence to allow for seamless transfers to universities, et cetera. Once that's approved, that's sent to our faculty senate, usually as a consent item because they believe the curriculum review committee has done their due diligence. And from our faculty senate, that's where the process can begin to take a little bit longer. For approval of any new courses at the system level, the system really wants to make sure that there's no redundancy in the course offerings across the system. So a new course goes through a process called common course numbering, where each of the NSHE institutions get an opportunity to review the new course proposed by one of the sister institutions and basically give it support or bring up items for discussion if they feel that there might be some significant overlap in a curriculum that's already being offered at another institution. So once that course undergoes the common course numbering review process, which can take some time, we do need to receive official word from the system office that that course has been vetted before we can put it in our catalog. On the degree and certificate approval, once it passes our faculty senate, it is a two-step approval process at the level of the Board of Regents. So it first goes to the Academic Affairs Council. That meets one day before the scheduled Board of Regents meetings. And the Academic Affairs Council consists of the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Student Services and all the academic officers from each of the institutions. So for TMCC, that's Dr. Marie Mergelot, the Vice President of Academic Affairs. And they give the initial approval, and then it goes to the Board of Regents for approval by the Academic Research and Student Services Committee. Now, the delay in time of approval there is it doesn't go to the Board of Regents the very next day at that same meeting just after the Academic Affairs Council. It goes to the following Board of Regents meeting, which, as you're aware, the Board of Regents meets quarterly. So we're looking, at roughly a 3 to 6 month minimum time for approval for any new degrees and certificates. Once we pass the Board of Regents, we do have to get authorization by our regional accreditors, the Northwest Commission of Colleges and Universities, NWCCU. And once they give their final approval, we are in fact allowed to put it in our catalog, advertise it that way and by other mediums to students. Now, Northwest has recently undergone some revisions in terms of what we submit as changes that they'll approve, what they consider substantive changes. That will greatly help us to expedite what we're asking to be approved. But prior to that, that could be anywhere from 3 to 4 months for their commission to review our proposals for any new degrees and certificates. So with that, I'll take any questions on our approval process for bringing forward any new degrees or certificates.
So I want to help clarify something. As you can tell, it takes many months, so there's a lot of sort of proactive schedule planning in order to get a new certificate or degree. However, there have been times where what we do, if we want to get something up very quickly to meet an industry need, we create either a non-credit certificate program that can later be turned into an approved degree, or we can even do a credit certificate program that's relatively small in the number of credits to get students started. So, but one of the reasons why I'm glad Associate Dean Dedman has presented this to you all is that it just highlights the fact that we do operate within a Nevada state system, and there are timelines that are somewhat lengthy. And I just wanted you to know that. But there are also some clever ways to get something done very quickly when industry needs us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon, speak.
Sorry, Dr. McGurlapour asked me to, this is Sharon Worm, Executive Director of Financial Aid and Student Success. And Dr. McGurlapour asked me to just talk a little bit about the financial aid piece. So after we get a degree approved, then we have to submit a certificate, not the associate degrees. We have to submit every certificate to the Department of Ed for approval before we can give financial aid for that program. So that's another layer on that process.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Yes.
So what do you currently have in the hopper? Are there a couple of degree programs that you're kind of midstream?
So I think that's a better question for Marie. I can tell you the one that's starting in the fall is hospitality and tourism. And then, of course, the ones that we discussed last at the workshop, like quality assurance, you know, I'm not sure that'll be done in time to bring to the Board of Regents at their December meeting. So, and now, I will say that the Board of Regents has been meeting much more than quarterly this past year, almost monthly. And, but that doesn't mean they always permit the agenda to include items such as new programs. That typically happens in December. But Marie, if you want to refresh our memory on what you've got, we have a long list of programs, and I'm just not sure what stage they're at this point.
For the record, Dr. Marie Mergelo, Vice President of Academic Affairs. We have the Bachelor of Science in Dental Hygiene. That'll be coming online. The Hospitality and Tourism degree, which will also be coming online. That's in this fall. We have, we will be bringing to AAC this next meeting a Associates of Arts in Communications.
That's the one.
That's pretty much where we are with the new.
Our certificates and degrees in graphic arts.
Oh, yes, we brought a third-year certificate in graphic arts that will then finish with Nevada State College for their fourth year here on our campus. So that also has gone through and been approved at the last meeting. Okay, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mergolo. Thank you, Dr. Dedmond. I'd like to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4. This is a presentation about TMCC diversity initiatives, and I'd like to welcome VP of Student Services and Diversity, Estela Gutierrez, to present with Miguel Martinez.
Still need to do
Oops,
B and
I'm
C.
sorry, B and C. We have items B and C.
Sorry, Estella,
For-
we jumped the gun a bit.
Sorry, yes. We have, I'm sorry, on item number 9 that was moved up, a discussion related to development of programs in the following areas: the Quality Assurance Program and the Smart City Technologies Program. Sorry, Kyle.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I'm Kyle Dalpe, Dean of Technical Sciences, here to give you an update on the 2 initiatives we were looking at last meeting, the Quality Assurance Program and the Smarter City Technology Program. And if you recall from the last meeting, the Quality Assurance Program outline was discussed at quite length. The feasibility study showed that it was possibly feasible in the marketplace. And what we've done since the last meeting is we decided to go out to employers in this that might use these type of technicians and do we're actually conducting it over the phone, an over-the-phone qualitative survey on their needs. And at this time, we're still collecting research and responses. I'm looking at some initial comments, and they range from, we're up to about 20 people who have responded, employers in the region. They range from things, comments like, all our techs need are high school. We'd love somebody with a bachelor's degree, and everything in between. So some of them have keyed in on, yes, a 2-year degree would be appropriate. And then we also asked a follow-up question, is what we have outlined, which you had in your packets last time for the degree program, is this what you would need? Some have said, yes, this is what we need, and some said, well, we don't need this, and why would you put nutrition in there? We need this instead. So it's become a survey of a whole different grouping of themes that are really, at this point, not being tied together, but it's showing that there is a need for the technician level in quality assurance at program at some level. We still have to define it and look at moving that curriculum forward. And as Associate Dean Dedman had said earlier about the process, this would have to go through our processes, but we could launch something on the non-credit side or even offer the class. Most of the classes are already offered, and then put the degree program through, so maybe a year from now, students who are already in that pipeline could then declare that degree when it hits one of our catalogs. So that's quality assurance, and what we'd like to do is continue to gather the research and then have the deans pencil out what it would actually look like based on that research. Any questions on that? The Smarter Cities Technology Program was another one that was discussed at length. The feasibility study showed that it was not necessarily viable as far as one of our key indicators or measures in the community, and that's jobs. It's a tough one to find jobs at the associate degree level. So the feasibility study that we presented last meeting said that the Smarter City Technology Program was not viable, so we haven't done anything with that except watch the marketplace to see if that changes. So for right now, that one's sort of on hold, and as new industries or new companies come to town, if there's an emergence in a technician level within that category, we would continue to explore it.
Thank you, Dr. Dalpy. So moving to agenda item 9C, in light of the feedback that you've given, we need to discuss possible action to adopt an action plan to move forward with the quality assurance program at this time.
I believe that would be appropriate. We could move forward to gather more research and outline and bring it back to this group, I think would be appropriate.
Does that require a motion?
You know, I don't know if it requires a motion, and I think this was an item that Chair Elmar was really interested in discussing, and I think he had some thoughts that because he's unable to be with us today, he's not here to share those. So I'm not sure it needs a motion. What do you think, John?
Are you going to recommend? You don't need to recommend it or not recommend it. It's up to the board, the council rather.
So we would be recommending further action to investigate and continue the process relative to the quality assurance program at this time? Yeah. All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for Dr. Dalpy?
Thank you.
Okay, now we are moving on to agenda item number 4, college highlight presentation about the TMCC diversity initiatives with Estela Gutierrez, VP of Student Services and Diversity.
Good morning. Again, my name is Estela Gutierrez. I'm Vice President of Student Services and Diversity. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. And so we're going to present, and here along with me is...
Hi, everyone. Good. My name is Miguel Martinez. I'm a college recruitment coordinator for TMCC.
All right. So I'm kind of going to go like this, if you don't mind, because I don't like to have my back to the presentation. So, Miguel, do you want a clicker?
Oh, I see.
All right, you could help me with that. All right, so today we're going to talk about our diversity initiative. So we're just going to highlight a couple of things. This was presented at the Board of Regents. So this was last presented at the last Board of Regents. And Yvonne Allen, who is the manager for equity and inclusion, is the one that presented this, and she's not here today. So then I'm here to present. So lucky me. Let's go back. So things that we're going to highlight today is we're just going to go over some statistics. And secondly, we're going to talk about TMCC and being a Hispanic serving institution. And third, Miguel is going to highlight one of our mini program, which is the Men of Color, and this is one of our newer initiatives. And then fourth, we're going to talk about the Diversity and International Student Center Office. So let's go ahead and start with our statistics. And so obviously, as you go into initiatives and making sure that we're meeting the needs of our ethnic students, we have to know our data. And so one of the things that we first did, along with IR, is institutional research, is look at our data. And so here, this slide here demonstrates the fact that, okay, where are our academic faculty, which is a lighter slide, which is this one here. I don't have a pointer. And then the middle bar is our academic faculty, and then you have our students. So what this demonstrates is that there's clearly a gap between our faculty, who are of minority or ethnic background, versus our student. And so here at TMCC, it's absolutely imperative that we mirror our community. And so that is one of our primary goals. And I know that's something we discussed in leadership just recently. We talk about it within my division and alongside with the Vice President of Academic Affairs. And so we want to make sure that we do have faculty of color. Next one. And this just kind of breaks it down just a little bit more between American, Indian, Native, Asian, Black American, African American, Hispanic, Latino, which is our largest minority group. But even then, what this demonstrates here is the fact that we really haven't fluctuated. We haven't made any real gains. And in fact, I was looking at the Hispanic Latino slide, and we actually decreased just a little bit. So this is definitely something we want to work on. Next slide. And then administrative faculty, which basically is faculty who work 12 months. And so most of them reside in my area. And so you could see that, again, there's no fluctuation. However, there's a less of a gap between students and administrative faculty. And here we have our student statistics. So you could see students of color comprise 42% now here at TMCC. That's a big difference since 26 years ago when I first came on board. And I could tell you that the fastest growing population is obviously our Hispanic Latino, and we've grown by 40%. So that's this slide. So there are any questions about that? Any questions regarding the first slides? All right, so moving along, our Hispanic Serving Institution. I think we mentioned this before. So what is it to be a Hispanic Serving Institution? So essentially across the nation, so in order to become a Hispanic Serving Institution, you have to be at least 25% Latino. And there's other requirements. So let's go ahead and move on. I'm pleased to announce that TMCC is the only, okay, Nate, pay attention, we're the only Northern Nevada Hispanic Serving Institution.
My favorite one at that.
Okay, right answer, right answer. And here we just wanted to demonstrate the fact that you could see on the top line that our total population has decreased just a little bit, but look at the second line, our Latino community. Latino students keeps on going up, okay? So we're excited about all of the efforts with regards to Hispanic, this Hispanic Serving Institution. It's a process. So we could tell you that here at TMCC, we've been preparing for this for a long time. In 2014, we created a task force, which is basically across the board. Academics, student services, everybody on campus, just looking at our data, just getting prepared. Okay, what can we do to make sure, one, that we become a Hispanic Serving Institution? Why do we want to become a Hispanic Serving Institution? Is because we would be eligible for grants and new funding. So that is the key thing. And so, so I'm happy to announce that we did become Hispanic Serving Institution 2 years ago. But that took a lot of preparation, a lot of work by all parties. Next. And so essentially, this group has come up with a strategic plan. And here we just are demonstrating that there's 3 important items for us. 1, to improve access. 2, to retain our Hispanic students. And 3, and to maintain our status as a Hispanic Serving Institution. So those are our 3 major goals. All right. Right over to you.
Thank you so much for giving me the time to present about the Men of Color Mentorship Program. We are, as Stella mentioned, we are a 2-year program. We started in 2016 with our first cohort at Galena High School. And so what we aim to do is to help underrepresented sophomore men get to college and become college ready. So we're working at 4 high schools this year. If you want to go ahead and click on the next slide. Yeah, so that kind of demonstrates the learning outcomes that we have. We're at Reed High School this year, Galena High School, North Valleys High School, and we expanded out to Hug High School this academic year. So as you can see, some of our learning outcomes are for our mentees to demonstrate professionalism, to employ leadership, to learn how to navigate the college process, the college admissions process, financial resources, to be able to articulate components of their own identity and the importance of identity development for these students, as well as hopefully inspiring them to give back to the community in some way. And so aside from aligning from the NC 2018 to 2021 strategic goals, we also align with the TMCC 2016 strategic master plan with core theme number 2, objective 3, create a learning environment that promotes academic growth for a diverse student population, and then core theme 3, objective 1, function as an open access institution, collaborate with financial aid to highlight the importance of financial aid and resources. So really just expanding the access and the preparedness for this specific group of students. And here you can see a breakdown of the student population. We are currently at 40 students of the 3 high schools that I mentioned aside from HUG. So that's the school we're recruiting from now. We're currently in the recruitment phase of that. So if you all know or anybody in the audience knows any sophomores at the high schools that I mentioned, please welcome them to apply on our website. We currently have 40 participants, as I mentioned, 6 mentors, 4 are TMCC student employees, and 2 are full-time staff members here at TMCC. And our projections are to expand out to 80 students by the end of this year. So we're hoping to welcome them at our Men of Color Summit on November 17th. So that's really when we invite them and their families to come along with us on this process and welcome them to our cohort. And then, so what does it take to run this program? Essentially, there's no cost to the mentee or their family. But it does cost the institution about $2,000 per mentee for the whole 3 years that we're working with the students. So I should have mentioned that earlier, but we do start working with the students the beginning of their high school sophomore year, and we're done by the time they finish their first semester in college. So then after that, we kind of hand them off to the institutions and make sure that they're retaining the students and the students have what they need to be successful there. So we meet with the students on a monthly basis on one-on-one, and we're also incorporating group meetings to this. But we, as you can see in the pictures, we're teaching them how to tie a tie, how to tie a bow tie, how to prepare a resume, how to do a professional mock interviews, how to write a letter and mail that out. So how to use all sorts of professional knowledge that they're going to need. We have offered 2 Jumpstart dual credit courses over the past 2 summers to our students. We do career exploration workshops with the counseling center here at TMCC. And then we want to make sure they expand their college knowledge, like I mentioned earlier, and understand the college process, and then learning about financial resources available to them here at TMCC. So we do collaborate with the financial aid office to provide workshops for our students about some of that. And then enhancing their guardian or their family involvement with the education process and making sure that the family is also aware of how to help their students navigate the educational process here. We do also offer MOC lanyards and sweaters for our students. Unfortunately, I didn't bring a sweater, but I do have lanyards for you all. At the end of the presentations, I'll walk around and hand those out to you. And then we're also in the process of getting a graduation medal approved with Washoe County to be able to give those to our students so they can wear when they graduate from their high school.
I believe we have a question.
Yeah, thank you. Nate McKinnon for the record. You had mentioned the previous slide, growing the cohort and recruiting from more high schools. When you do that, do you anticipate that the cost per mentee will stay the same, or that there will actually be some scale there that will lower the overall cost? I'm just wondering what the 2,000 was based on originally.
Yeah, so we take into consideration the sweater, the lanyard, the one-on-one mentoring, the food for the events that we provide for that, and then the cost of the dual credit courses. So all of that is combined from either grants or institutional money to cover. Yeah, so hopefully we're able to provide the same resources for all the students. So I'd like to keep the number somewhere there or around the same, just to be able to provide them with the same resources that we think they need to be successful in college.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a question from Board Member Esquaga.
Thank you. I am curious, so how do you recruit the mentees? How do you identify them? How do you let them know that this is available to them?
Good question. So we work very closely. Luckily, I'm a recruiter here. So I go out. I already have a really close connection with the high schools. And so I work with the career techs and the counselors at the high schools to help us identify the students. So really, we just let them know that we're just trying to work with underrepresented men, and they identify with that title. So as long as a student identifies and checks that they self-identify, there is no questions on our end about their identity or proving any part of their identity. So, but we really rely on the schools. Reed High School sends out a letter to the family, to their home, inviting the students to participate in the program and sharing the documents and where to actually apply. Galena High School, we rely with the high school sophomore counselor, and she's the one who has the connection, and the freshman counselor. So both of them really help us. And then at Hug, it's really a team effort with all of them on board to meet with the students. So it just depends on how the school is broken down. Sometimes, like at North Valleys, the counseling is broken down by last name, so I have to work with all the counselors. So it just really depends on the school structure. But
great.
heavily recruiting by the counselors.
And the recruiting of the mentors is done in what manner?
With the mentors, that's it was just the peer recruiters that are in our office and another full-time employee in our office as well.
And would it be helpful to have members of the community also act as mentors as part of this program?
It definitely would. I think it would provide them with more role models than just the ones that we have here.
So I might recommend some sort of a press release or some sort of an announcement requesting that people that would be interested, that fit the criteria for the college to consider participating as a mentor in the program.
Okay, thank you.
I believe we have a question also from Board Member Thurman.
John Thurman for the record. Just a quick question. In the just Washoe County schools, I guess, what percentage of male students fit into the men of color?
I think it's significant.
Deborah Byersdorf from Washoe County School District. I don't have the specific percent in front of me, but yes, Estella, I would agree. It's probably a large percentage. And is it senior class? Is it senior levels? Excuse me, sophomores. So yes, it would be probably pretty significant.
Right, thank you. And just as a quick follow-up, is there a maximum capacity that the program could handle?
Yeah, currently we recruit 10 students from each high school, so that's really all that's where that number comes from. We're at 4 high schools, so 10 from each.
All right.
Yeah, and that's all we can handle at the moment.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just mention something? And essentially, this is how we start things here at TMCC. We pilot things and then we expand. And we've been very successful. And it takes a lot of collaboration, in particular with Washoe County School District. And going back to the question with regards to how many students fit this category, I know when I was on the Board of Trustees, this was a big issue across the nation, and it still is, where we used to see Latinas not really succeed 26 years ago, or even access college. And so now you're seeing the opposite. Now you're seeing the boys, the men of color, African American and Latino. And a good proportion of them also, what we found is that they either drop out or they're incarcerated. There's all these statistics about that. So this is a program that would actually provide that access all the way through sophomore to then now.
We have another question, Dr. Hilgerson.
Hi, so how much time do the students spend in the program?
On a yearly basis or throughout the whole?
Oh, so weekly. If I'm a high school student, how much weekly or monthly? How much time am I working with TMCC?
Yeah, so if face-to-face, we go out once a month, so that is usually a class period, so anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour and a half. But there's always follow-up texts or emails that we send with the students, and we're constantly communicating with them through those means as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my contact information, along with the Men of Color Mentorship Program email, is up there, so if you all ever have any questions, feel free to reach me.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Hilgerson?
So I just wanted to say thank you to Estella and Miguel. They've done and also Yvonne, who could not be here today. They do an absolutely incredible job on all things diversity, but this program in particular, which I know, Miguel, you should be so, so proud of. You've done a wonderful job starting up this pilot. And I'm really looking forward to where it will go from here. And I think mentoring, getting community members to mentor is just a fabulous idea. So I just wanted to say thank you. Well done.
We still have a little portion.
Yes, please continue.
We still have the fun part here too. And I just want to echo the fact that, we've done some significant things in the last 8 years. And as I mentioned before, we start programs, initiatives as pilots, especially when resources are scarce. And so we've been very fortunate, along with Gretchen's office and foundation, when we partner with her and now with Karen, to find the resources. So we at least go for 2 years, see how successful we are, and then go forward. And we made some strides. You are all familiar with Success First. You'll hear a little bit about that. So there's all these programs that we're doing, and it's making a difference. Now our Hispanic Latino, if I'm correct, Elena, they're really outpacing when it comes to graduation. They're outpacing the non-Hispanics. So basically, that is really cool. Are we now? Did you pay attention to that, Nate? Yes. Okay. All right. So our next section, our final section, is the Diversity and International Students Center office. And I could tell you personally, after being here for 26 years, and I come from Fresno, and so I felt like we were a little bit behind, but I'm happy to say that last fall, we had our grand opening. Look at me, how happy I am. I'm even doing a disco move there, or disco. But anyhow, and this is so important for students, especially for space, because we want to include a space for students that provides them a welcoming type of environment, a space where we could offer resources and so forth. And this is thanks to Karen. I mean, think about it. We're in 2018, and under the leadership of Dr. Hilgerson, this finally happened. And also with the help of our new VP, our finance guy, Diamond Jim, who really helped us and really sitting down with leadership and making this a priority. This was a priority. So I'm very thankful for that. So the space includes Equity, Inclusion, Sustainability Office, along with International Student Services. So it's very unique. So it's a space for all of our ethnic students and also international students, which is growing, by the way. It's also a space for faculty and staff to congregate and to really collaborate with students. So what we house there is we have awesome computers in there, we have study space, we have a lounge area. How many of you have visited this space? Awesome, right, Nancy?
Absolutely.
Awesome space. We have a mobile device. It's really updated, really cool, and that's really important for students. I want to echo that it's really important for students to have a nice space and nice, cool things, really, and modern things, not old things. Student peer mentoring, we offer that in that area. We have lots of events and programs. We have dignitaries there and so forth. And then we have a private nursing space. So basically, I'm pleased to announce that just in a year, we had over 1,400 interactions with students, faculty, and staff, which is really cool. It's very busy. It's a hub now. We have our diversity peer mentors who are there every single day who provide, advice and resources for students who are there. So basically that concludes our presentation. Do you have any questions?
I believe Board Member Macklin, did you have a question or comment? I saw a hand raised. It's kind of like an auction.
We should discuss it offline.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Stella? Okay.
Nate McKinnon for the record. I actually have a comment. This presentation was given to the Board of Regents at the June meeting and was very well received. And I just think that the work that's going on here at TMCC, in particular with the disco as a center, is really groundbreaking stuff. Then I was a Nevada Promise mentor this year and still am. And I brought all of my mentees here and walked them around campus to make sure they felt comfortable. And we always stopped in the disco, and they were like, they every time said, "This place is really cool," and I could see myself hanging out here. And it's just a great sentiment that TMCC's put that much effort into a really safe place, and I think it's something that the college should be very proud of.
Thank you. Any other questions?
A question and a comment, and because Estella, when you mentioned serving, Deborah Beiersdorf, when you mentioned serving on the district's Board of Trustees, thinking maybe we could chat about a potential presentation to our board on the Men of Color Mentorship Program.
You sure you want me to present on
I think you would like that. I think they would like that, because I think Again, thinking about finding more mentors, understanding there's budget and things like that. I think even, working within the district and our employees who would love the opportunity to work with students in a different way. So
Yes.
we can connect.
All right.
I do have a question. Is there someone at TMCC who has general overall responsibility or concern for mentoring programs in general?
Explain that on campus, or
Yes, on campus.
we have different programs. So we have the Nevada Promise, that there's mentors part of that. So there is, most of them resides in my area. So there's different programs that have different mentors and so forth. So basically, it's within my division, most of my division.
I would say that it's not centralized.
No.
I would say that mentor programs exist in pockets, usually based on function. But you're bringing up a really interesting point. My wheels are already starting to move. And some campuses have service learning centers, and typically then a service learning center coordinator or leader also takes on the responsibility of centralized college mentoring programs. So that's definitely something I've not had time yet to talk about at TMCC, but I think it's a great question to ask and to analyze a little bit. So,
Just briefly, maybe I should say why I'm asking this question, because
Right.
we aren't going to meet for another three months, okay?
right.
You're talking about the statistics regarding what is happening with Hispanic girls versus boys. I am aware, I believe, that there is a more general crisis, that if you look at European American boys, they are underperforming relative to females in general. In fact, I can't give the exact statistic, but European boys are now falling behind and graduating from high school and college at the same rate that was historically true for African American males. And for me, that's a canary in the coal mine, and people aren't paying attention to it because they're white. Now, I'm African American, but I'm an American, and I look at this and I say, we got a problem that nobody's willing to look at. And if this college has mentoring programs, I would hope that there would be some way that that problem could be addressed without creating other problems.
Right.
Yeah. So for our particular, for TMCC, we look at our data, and the data, it does emphasize that it's more the men of color. That's our campus data. I'm sure that that's true for some campuses. I can tell you that this men of color is open to not just African American and Latino or what have you. It's open to all boys, men who want to participate if we identify and they're admitted. So.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Estella. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're moving on to agenda item number 5, which is the president's update.
Okay, well, my life is measured in semesters, and in a couple of weeks, the students get back, and we're all really excited. Beginning next week, we launch sort of our kickoff and planning ceremonies. So on Monday, we have a planning retreat that will include cabinet leadership, which is, mostly management administration, and then it also includes in an afternoon setting, so faculty who are holding leadership roles, who will meet with deans and directors and VPs and my level. And this year, we will be emphasizing a couple of things next week, and that is prioritization. So we've got all of these new initiatives going on, and we have only so much capacity. So what are our top priorities as we move into the next couple of years? We're also going to continue to do some work that we began last year around organizational culture and achieving not just a high-performing organizational culture, which I think we currently have, but a high-performing organizational culture with very high levels of satisfaction, motivation, and an eye toward innovation and being aspiring to the very best completion rates that we possibly can, and student success and the role that that plays. So we'll be doing part 2, and we'll be having a discussion about organizational culture, our new value propositions that I'll share with you at the next board meeting, and that's one of the items that Yvonne Allen has helped to lead with help from the Faculty Senate. And then we'll be spending some time on diversity and talking more with leadership campus-wide on celebrating diversity and understanding diversity as it relates to the demographics here at TMCC. So in other words, we've been planning a lot. And this week, my leadership team and I had our planning and prioritization session, and we'll be sharing our list of priorities with the deans and directors and to see how that meshes with their list of priorities. And then NSHE is giving us a list of priorities, so we've got to put it all together so we have a nice map for what we're going to focus our energies and our thoughts as the next year or two unfolds. So planning, planning, planning. And we plan because on August 27th, most of the students will be back. Very excited. We will be welcoming our first crop of Nevada Promise Scholars. About 400 of them managed to get through the mentoring and the service. Of the 400, about 200 are receiving funding, either full funding as a result of the Nevada Promise program or partial funding as a result of the Nevada Promise program. The other 200 students qualified for so much financial aid that although they are Nevada scholars, Nevada Promise scholars, and we are going to refer to them as Nevada Promise scholars, they're not eligible for additional funding because they're already receiving Pell, for example. So it's really exciting to see how that program is morphing. And while those students come to our campus, we will be recruiting the next crop of students at the same time. And I think we've learned a lot along the way. And thank you, Nate McKinnon, for your leadership. Nate led the state in coordinating Nevada Promise efforts, which I think was so helpful in so many ways, and helped us streamline processes to the benefit of students, which is terrific. So we look forward to seeing where that program goes, and we're continue to be very delighted that it is now part of Nevada. Question? Comment?
Can I make one quick plug,
Sure.
which is the application is open and online for next year's seniors already. So to our friends from Washoe County, any seniors, anyone who knows a senior in the room, have them fill out the application. They need to do so before October 31st to be eligible. If they miss that window, they can't go back and do it later. So thank you, Madam President.
The other thing I should add is we're doing something a little different this year for our August 16th kickoff, and August 16th is the first day that faculty are back on contract, full-time faculty. So it's a day where there'll probably be 300 to 350 folks in the Student Center, and we've invited a nationally known, actually internationally known speaker, Ian Jukes, to come to our campus and talk about digital age students and learning and the effects that has had on not just our society, but on how our students process information and how faculty teach and learn in that context. Ian has written numerous books. He's spoken all over the world. He is a very fun and pleasant speaker. If you do want to hear one of his presentations, please just let Lisa know, and we'll make sure that there's room for you. He'll be speaking Thursday morning from about 9:30 to lunch, and then again after lunch for another couple of hours. And then he's doing a special presentation that's really targeting some of our IT staff, because much of this is, how does technology now affect what we're doing as educators and affect how well students learn or not learn in some cases. So that's happening on Friday mornings. That's a much smaller audience, I would suspect. But we're really excited to do this. We can't afford to do this every year, but this is my third year here, and I asked Kathy Brewster, our professional development guru, how long has it been since we brought in a big name who can really come shake things up from the perspective of how we reflect on our role as educators. And she said, well, it's been a few years. We've done it, we do it, but it's been a while. And so we pulled the trigger, and I'm excited to see what happens. I was very fortunate. I got to see Ian Jukes present, I think it was like 2008, and it changed my thinking as a at the time I was a vice president and much closer to when I left teaching, and it really changed my thinking. So I hope that everyone will enjoy him, and he's actually very funny as well. So the other thing I want to mention that's happening in the fall, we are launching the hospitality and tourism program. It's generating a lot of excitement with some of our casino and resort owners, so I can't wait to see how that goes. We also are doing the first Bachelor of Science degree in dental hygiene. This is not an applied bachelor's degree. This is a Bachelor of Science degree. So that is really a great thing for TMCC and for the dentists and dental hygienists of our region. I suspect we're going to get many of our former dental hygiene students who have a 2-year degree, which had so many credits in it, it took them about 3 years to complete. But I suspect that many of them will come back and complete their bachelor's degree through this program, and which will be really great, a high level of quality and service in our dental community. A quick bit of news on Capitol. The health club and soccer field work is well underway. So far, it's on schedule. You know, there's been a lot of concerns about the cost of some of the project elements due to basically a labor shortage in the state of, in this region right now. We're also concerned about the materials prices as they may be affected by, you know, what's happening with worldwide imports and exports. So, but other than that, we've got a great architect who is managing and builder who, as part of a CMAR process, and they are managing the cost estimates day by day. And we've already made a hard choice that we can address later, but the soccer field, the health club, still intact. What we've decided to cut back on is the field house, because we just, at the end of the day, we don't want to inflate the cost of the project. We need to come in where we said we would come in. But we're really excited about that, and the SGA, they're really excited about it too. So if all continues to go well as it is, that we'll have a groundbreaking in October, and you'll be invited to that, and the project will be complete about, I think, about 12 months from that groundbreaking. So we're making good progress. We are in the process of selecting the architect, and again, under a CMAR design build process that Jim can explain later if you have a question about that. I think he'll do a better job than I will.
Defer to John on that.
Defer to John. Anyway, but we are super excited. You may or may not recall that NSHE permitted us to spend about $1 million of operating pool NSHE dollars to hire an architect and get documents nearly complete so that we can do a much better job of raising the private funds for the EATS project. And EATS is entrepreneurship, Action Link, which will actually be home to hospitality and tourism, the TMCC Theater, and the Sierra Culinary Institute, and a significant expansion of culinary arts. I think you should be aware, because I'm not sure I've made this point as clearly as I need to. The TMCC Theater, which is currently at Keystone, has been a growing problem for us. We lease a space, it's several miles from campus, it's in a part of town that is, you know, frankly, not the safest part of town. It's next door to a vape shop. There's going to be a pot dispensary also next door. You know, it doesn't have a theatrical feel, let me just put it that way. About a decade ago, the Redfield Foundation generously donated money to basically take what was an old movie theater next to a grocery store and turn it into a really cool black box theater. Fast forward now, it serves its purpose, but the seats are extremely uncomfortable, I'll say that. And that part of town just hasn't gotten any better. You know, I'll just, again, I'm trying to be politically correct. So we really, and by the way, that lease cost us about $175,000 a year, and that's not including the energy bills and other costs related to maintenance. So part of the driver for EATS is the TMCC Theater. That's a big driver, getting that back on Dandini's main campus where more students can participate, not just in the performing, you know, singing and dancing and acting, but in stage technology, stage construction, other types of media technologies that are becoming once again in demand in the Reno area. as a result of casino receipts up, resort receipts up. All of that technology is becoming really important. So EATS is super important for this college. It not only solves that problem, but it will be a signature building on this campus that will just, open so many doors for students. We do have a financing plan sketched out that we won't share. I don't think you're sharing that today. I've been having conversations with the Board of Regents on why it's so important to give us the thumbs up to move forward. And then Gretchen and I have some fundraising goals. And we think that will go very well once we have some good renderings and architectural images that will be more inspirational than what we currently have. So I'd say that's going well, too. The other thing that I'll mention today is NSHE has been very busy working with presidents in the NSHE system to get ready for the legislative session. And I won't talk about that today. I think we'll save that to our next meeting, but I think we will end up with a very good coordinated effort. And we will alert you as to how you can help when the legislative session opens in January. I think that's right. All right? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hibblesham. Any questions about her presentation and update? I have one comment from participating in the the Nevada Promise Grant Mentor Program, and just want to commend the staff at TMCC who has done a really fabulous job of staying in touch, communicating, following up, engaging the mentors in the process. So they are on it, absolutely on it, and really impressed with just the organization that they have and the systematic reminders of the next steps that need to be taken to ensure that these students qualify for the program and are able to get the funding.
I just think that Nevada Promise Scholarship Program is such a groundbreaking program for the school. And, when you talk about this mentoring and the coordinated effort, I haven't seen anything quite like this, where so many people have come together, because you started off with like 900.
Yeah, over 1,000.
Over
yeah.
1,000, and people were coming from all over the community to help mentor these kids. But is there some sort of structure in place that we can start measuring as they go through their first semester, first year, what their success rate is, how that might, have you thought about what those indicators might look like for success?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question, Nate McKinnon for the record. Each of our institutions and system-wide, we're putting a NSHE flag for Nevada Promise students. And so one of the things we hope to actually have is success measures probably by next spring into next summer, so that we can see what number of students actually matriculated from application into the fall semester and then persisted into their second semester, which is a really important point for all of our community colleges and all first-time students, is seeing them persist into a second semester at a full-time course load. So we are, overall, our rate right now is about 10% of the original applicants. So keep in mind that many individuals may have filled out their application because a guidance counselor put it in front of them or a teacher and said, just fill it out, and had no intention of using it. But we do, so right now we have data on the number of applicants and what that pool looks like on our applicants who are actually going to we hope make it into the schools this fall. But as far as the success rates, that's something we'll work with our colleges on in our institutional research at the system level to collect data, and the time for that will be probably after the fall semester.
Really interested in seeing that. Great.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Julie Muley. Everything's so awesome with all of the growth that we're looking at. And then I kind of go back down to the base level, which is parking. At some point, I would say that we might need to visit that to make sure we're keeping pace with the growth in students and the new numbers that we're anticipating. So we'll be looking at
Thank you.
parking down the road.
Okay, moving right along to the chairman's update, agenda item number 6. So I have an item to bring forward on behalf of the chair, Elmar Dave, and this is a discussion and possible action to add a seat to this TMCC Institutional Advisory Council. The proposal is to add one additional seat to bring the total number of participants to 15. And I would open discussion and would entertain a motion for possible action to go ahead and add that seat. Dr. Hokosom, do you have anything to add about the request to expand the size of the council?
I know that Chair Dave has an individual in mind for that seat who some of us met at the workshop last month. I think that was last month. And one of the interesting things is, I'm blanking on the name of the gentleman, I apologize, but I do recall he is a UNR professor and could be helpful when it comes to our UNR connections, especially as related to engineering. So, do you remember?
I don't understand.
Can someone help me? Oh, okay.
We get into open meeting. Oops. Oh, I did it the wrong way. I suggest we not talk about the individual because we get into open meeting law problems. Just suggest you make a recommendation that you expand the size of the council and just leave it at that.
Okay. We will follow your directions. So do we have any conversation or concerns about the addition of an additional member to the Institutional Advisory Council?
Just John Thurman, for the record, just a question. Is the additional position for a particular segment or sector, or is it just purely and simply an addition in numbers?
My understanding, it's an addition to the size of the council and falls within the guidelines that are in the bylaws of the organization.
Okay.
And it gives you some flexibility if you just say, we want to add a member.
Right.
And then in a year, you're not bound by what you said today.
Right.
Any other discussion? So do I have a motion to approve the addition of an additional member to the council?
John Thurman for the.
I have a motion by John Thurman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Esquada. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion has passed. On this section, since I get to fill in today as the vice chair, the only other thing that I would like to add is the overall energy level of everyone that we, in my role as EDON, deal with at TMCC. The enthusiasm, the dedication, the follow-through, the just continuous focus on results and outcomes is really something that makes my job much easier. In that vein, EDON will be requesting pulling together a group from the university, from TMCC, from WNC, and from the school district. These will be representatives from the Career Studio to standardize the tracking of participation by both companies and students in internship and apprenticeship programs. TMCC is doing a great job of providing the update and has been for the last year, but because the different organizations are all tracking things in different ways and different timelines of cohorts and all of that, it's very difficult to measure as a community how we are tracking in terms of improvement in participation in those programs. So we're very much interested in providing at least a quarterly or biannual report to the community to inspire companies that are not participating at all in internships or apprenticeships to do so, to publicize participation for students, and to really have a community metric of the educational institutions in the region to really track how that is going. So that's something that we are going to be requesting participation in, and we will use the TMCC model and tracking mechanism as a start point for conversation to see if others can just agree on a common standard of reporting.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So do we usually take a break around 10:30 or so? So we'll continue on the agenda and then we'll take a break at 10:30. So I would like to go to agenda item number 7, community directions, and this will be a presentation by Community Foundation Executive Director Gretchen Sawyer.
Good morning. Thank you, Council. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. I'm Gretchen Sawyer, Executive Director of the TMCC Foundation. And it's been a little while since I've provided an update, and there's some new members. So I'm really excited to share some updates with you, let you know about some initiatives that are going on, and just give you an overview of the foundation and our role at the college. So to start out with why TMCC has a foundation. So we were established in 1982 and set up along with the other foundations at the other institutions to help support the college in raising private funding for the college. So we are governed by a board of directors, and they help us in our oversight and in all of our efforts of raising funds. They're terrific advocates for the college and provide some really helpful guidance to us as well. So we have 8 members of the board who are listed here, chaired by Gigi Chisel, who is one of the new IAC members. So we're excited to have her be a part of the IAC with you. Brad Woodring is our immediate past chair, who was part of the IAC recently. So it's a great group that we have. So we have 8 members of the board with the goal of increasing to 12. So to give you a little bit about our staff, so we are a small and mighty staff, and I want to introduce you all to Stephanie Givens, who's over here in the audience. She's our development officer and does a fantastic job, and we're so excited to have her part of the team. So there are just 6 of us. 2 of our staff are dedicated to grants, and that is the management and the pre-proposal side of state, federal, and private foundation grants. So that's a big job, and I can do a whole separate presentation on that another time to really dive into the grant side of it. But really our responsibility is raising funds for the college in line with the college's strategic plan. So on average, we raise about $2 to $3 million per year, and we raise funds for capital, for equipment. Scholarships is a huge, huge part of our responsibility, not only raising the money, but also awarding the scholarships with our financial aid department as well. So that we raise about $700,000 and award about $700,000 a year in scholarships as well. So that kind of gives you an overview of some of our top areas of focus. And again, it's raising funds. Capital is a big, big part. In addition to the scholarships, because of the lack of state support. So the college has not received capital funds in about 14 years to help with the building. So that is a big effort on our part to raise the private money for that. So the last building that we had constructed was the Health Science Center down at the Redfield campus. That was a $10 million project without state funds. So we received a bond and then raised private support as well for that. So that really shows you the huge need that we have for capital. So just to highlight a couple of the recent projects that have been completed with support from the foundation. The top one is the renovations at the William N. Pennington Applied Tech Center. So the Applied Tech Center has gone under 3 phases of renovations now, totaling almost $10 million. So a huge transformation, and it's just beautiful. And if any of you haven't been there, I think you all have been there. It is just fantastic. And we have great partnerships with the school district, with ACE Charter School. It is so busy and fantastic there. And we are super grateful to the Department of Commerce, who gave us a grant to help with the first phase of renovations. Then the William M. Pennington Foundation provided $4.3 million, which was a record gift to the college for the second and third phases of that renovation. So that was fantastic. The next one I want to highlight is our Center for Applied Logistics Management. Thanks to the estate of Frank Bender, we were able to dedicate a space at the Meadows site for CALM, is what we call it, the Center for Applied Logistics Management. And that is one of our bachelor's degrees that we offer. So that was because of the estate of Mr. Bender that has been possible. Then just last year, we were granted a $1.6 million gift from the Pennington Foundation to do some renovations in the dental area that I will highlight in a minute, but those renovations have just started now. And then we just have received a 3-year continuation of the Jacobs Presidential Scholars Program, which is an amazing scholarship program for students who are under or unemployed, real short term, getting them in, out, and getting them a job. So it's been very successful. This program has been in existence since 2013, and we've had 200 students go through the program. It's because of the generosity of the Herb and Maxine Jacobs Foundation. And I cannot express enough our gratitude, because not only is it the foundation, which is the legacy of Herb and Maxine, but their daughter, Jill Jacobs, and her husband and a trustee from the East Coast. They reside just outside of Boston. They come out every year for a visit where they are able to see and meet their students and see firsthand the impact of their program. So that's just wonderful, and they committed to another 3 years. So we're very excited about the continuation of this. Okay, so to touch on this great renovation opportunity that we've had, that just the impact of this grant is huge because it's touching a number of different areas. And I have to give a huge shout out to Julie Muley, who has been so involved in this project and so helpful all along. And so this was $1.6 million from the Pennington Foundation to support renovations in the dental area. So right now we are working with an organization in the community called Adopt a Vet Dental. They provide dental care free of charge to veterans. And so they are using our space now once a week up in the dental clinic. And it's been a wonderful opportunity for not only the vets, I mean, to see the before and after pictures of the vets. I wish I had a couple pictures to share. Maybe I'll bring them next time, because it is amazing, the impact. But not only on the vets, but our students as well, who get to work on the patients. So that's become a really nice situation where we're working with a community organization and it's benefiting our students. So the first step then is dedicating a clinic specifically for Adopt a Vet that will be housed here, where Adopt a Vet will be here 3 times a week. So we had to have a couple different renovations to make all this happen because of space constraints. So the first step is we are moving the Certified Nursing Assistant program from upstairs on the 4th floor down to Meadowwood. So that Meadowwood area is under renovation right now to be completed in October. So with the freeing up of that space, that's going to allow for the space for the Adopt a Vet clinic. and also expand assisting a bit with some new Sims. And then also for dental hygiene, we're getting 2 new dental hygiene chairs, which will really help with the new bachelor's that's coming on board. Then we're going to move a lab from the 3rd floor up to some additional space up in the 4th floor. And that will free up space on the 3rd floor for a much needed anatomy and physiology lab. So that will really help because so many students need to get that A&P class as their prereqs. So that A&P lab is a part of it too. So as you can see, I mean, just the impact of this is very widespread and huge. I mean, it's really another transformative grant that we've received. So I think I covered all of the impact, but it'll be great to take you on a tour once it's all completed. And then, so President Helgerson talked a bit about the EATS, really gave a good overview of where we are. We're really excited to get the architect on board so we can have the drawings, which are so key for us to be able to go out and sell to the community this project. So the price tag we have on it is $33 million. And, you know, with the labor shortages, we'll see. But our goal is to raise $6 million in private support, which is going to be a real heavy lift. But we are working, we're moving forward, getting a committee together, and going to be working really hard to raise that private support. So we're really excited about this project. Then I wanted to just touch on a couple initiatives, new initiatives that we have. And thanks to Stephanie for really spearheading these upcoming 2 that I'm talking about. Our 1971 Society. So this is based on the year that TMCC was founded, and it is an opportunity for a yearly leadership giving club. So people then join this opportunity for giving and support the college, receive recognition, attend events, get special updates from us. Stephanie's even been doing separate emails to this society. So right now we have 23 members who have joined with a goal of 40 by the end of the year. So we hope all of you will consider joining, and we'll follow up with some more information for you about it. But it's really a great opportunity to bring some, you know, new donors into the fold and help raise existing donors to higher levels. So that's a really exciting initiative. And then we have a corporate partners program. So this is just from the information. It's small on the screen for you. So just to give you an idea, this is a really exciting initiative because this provides the opportunity to bring corporations into more involved with TMCC. And this is an opportunity for corporations to support at $5,000 and above. And they will help with scholarships, with professional development. We're working closely with the Career Center on this to really help make that relationship even stronger with corporations in terms of internships and other opportunities. So we've just been launching this, and ideas that you have of people we should be approaching would be great. Our first 2 members to the society are Click Bond, thanks to IAC member Collie Header, and HVA Vacuum Valves, which is a wonderful company who's been very supportive of the college. So you'll be hearing more about that, but we're really excited about this initiative. And then, okay, you have to make sure and mark your calendars for October 18th. So we have what is called Beatles and Beer. And what this event is, it's a fundraiser for scholarships for culinary, performing arts, and it will be just a very fun event. We have a number of different elements, including TMCC's concert band, who will be performing Beatles music. We have a gentleman named Ian Wright, who was a BBC photographer, who is donating some of his pictures to be auctioned off. And he'll be at the event talking about his experiences with the Beatles, which will be very exciting. And then Great Basin Brewery has created a beer for TMCC. So Peaches and Cream. So we will be debuting that at the event as well. So there'll be lots of fun components to it, and you will not want to miss it. So we'll be sending out an invitation to you. Also, it is $25, so you really don't want to miss the entertainment, the food, which is being created by our culinary team as well. So, and we're going to really engage faculty and staff in it as well. So, a couple things coming up. So, just to kind of summarize and talk to you about how you can help and what you can do to become more involved in our fundraising efforts. Well, becoming a member of the 1971 Society would be greatly appreciated. We'd love to add you to that list. Also, ideas who you have for people who can help us with EATS, who can help us with our corporate campaign. That would be really helpful, you know, really helping us with the doors that you can help us to, that you can open for us. And then also your continued advocacy for TMCC. We're so appreciative for all that you do for the college. So that's my quick summary of the foundation. So does anyone have any questions? None? Wow. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Dr. Hickelson.
This is not a question. This is just a statement. Again, every day I come to TMCC, I'm blessed. The people I work with here are incredible. And Gretchen and her team are no exception to that. So I just want to thank you and your team for all your marvelous work. And I was wondering if everyone here, I think they've probably all met Stephanie by now, right?
I don't know.
Should we
Here
introduce
she
Stephanie?
is.
So if you could stand just for a minute. This is Stephanie Givens. And the precise job title is?
Development Officer.
Development Officer. And this is a relatively new position. So we're really happy you're here. The other thing that Gretchen, I can't recall if you mentioned it, but Gretchen also supervises our grants office. So we have a team of 2 at the moment. Laura Vargas, who's a great grant writer, and then a new employee, brand new, Ashlyn Marino, who will help coordinate grants and the communication and some of the reporting requirements of grants that are due when we actually receive them. So again, you just do a marvelous job, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I think we're going to take about a 10-minute break. And if you'll all return at 10:35 or so, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, if we could go ahead and rejoin the conference table and resume our council meeting, I would like to move on to agenda item number 8, student directions. This presentation will be addressing the strategic plan goals of success. Plan goal 2, success, goal 3, closing the achievement gap, and goal 5, research. We're going to be having a presentation from Yuli Chavez, Program Director, Access Outreach and Recruitment, about the Success First program. So welcome, and look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. How are ya? Good. Happy Friday! Yay! I'm really excited. It's Friday. I'm also very excited to be here today and present about our 9-year program, Success First, which has been at TMCC for 9 years, and it's really, really exciting. It's definitely one of my favorite programs. Hopefully some of you have had the opportunity to be involved with Success First. Nate was our keynote speaker last Thursday at the closing ceremony. But it's really a program that centers around the idea of improving access opportunities to students, and to also enhance the retention and completion of the students who participate in the program. So it's a very holistic program. It's a program that has evolved quite significantly over the years. It's a program that continues to change because students are unique, and every year they bring new experiences, new ideas, new initiatives with them to campus. So we adapt as they adapt. And we really, really try to keep in mind that ultimately the goals of programs like the Success First program at TMCC are really to enhance access opportunities for students who may not have had initiatives or ideas of going on to college and pursuing higher education, to make sure that they are provided top quality academic support when they are here, and then to really continue to enhance the support that we provide them through success coaching and support services throughout their first year in college. So Success First is very much a first year program that starts with Summer Bridge, which is what I'll be talking about today. Again, my name is Yuli Chavez. I have the privilege of working at TMCC with the Access, Outreach, and Recruitment Department. Miguel, shout out to Mr. Martinez in the back. Also, the Men of Color Mentorship Program is also in our office. So we're really an office that, our main goal is to advance opportunities for all students, and we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to speak to you today. So thank you so much for letting us do that. So back, when the Success First program was first created, TMCC recognizes that there is a need to provide greater access opportunities to all students. And Estella piloted a very small first generation program about 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, Texas was in the process of implementing the first of its kind Summer Bridge program at 9 of the community colleges in Texas. So they decided to do what they refer to as a very intense boot camp over the summer that targets first generation, low income, underrepresented students. And when we say underrepresented, we are including students of all backgrounds, because underrepresented includes populations such as students with disabilities, students from low income backgrounds, of course ethnic minorities, but the term underrepresented is actually very broad. And it does give access to many students. So Texas piloted the program, and actually in the state of Texas, because I've looked back and see, hey, what happened in Texas? So what they found is that their program actually showed no significant impact on student retention or completion, which is very interesting because ours has, and I'll show you all the data. So that's pretty impressive. And again, I think it's it speaks very highly of TMCC's ability to make it work. And we definitely have this mentality of trying new initiatives and providing as many opportunities as possible, adjusting, adapting, changing as best as we can to really adapt to the needs of each student population. And each year, once again, has brought a fresh outlook to campus in terms of retention and even recruitment of the latest generation of high school graduates. The Summer Bridge program traditionally, has served an average of about 120 students, but the years, as you will see from the data here, the number of student participants has really changed from year to year, mostly depending on funding. I am very grateful to Gretchen and the foundation because we would not be able to have this program without them. They fundraise throughout the whole year to provide students books, tuition in the summer, because students don't have to pay for tuition when they attend the summer program. They also work really hard because at the end of the summer, the students are provided an $800 scholarship to help them, kick off the start of their freshman year in college. And all of that work is really, really thanks to the work of the foundation and, of course, TMCC leadership for supporting the program with the very substantial administrative support that we receive to be able to plan this on a yearly basis. But this latest cohort, and which we've not included the data here, but we had 140 participants in 2018, and the students were in one of 3 different tracks. They were either taking Math 96, they were taking Math 126 if they were college ready, or for students that their test scores were just unfortunately too low to place them into a math class, we created a new program called a Math Wizards program. That's Estela's title. We really wanted to take away any stigma from students because their test scores are quite frankly very, very low. And by test scores, I mean ACT, SAT, or AccuPlacer test scores. So these are the students that, you know, data tells us nationwide they persist at single-digit numbers, and that they are the most likely to not persist or not even start college in the first place. So they, we had 45 of those students participate in Summer Bridge, and they were taking a very much expanded, very comprehensive math skill center over the program. And again, those are Math Wizard students, 140 of them. So ultimately, again, the goal is to really work very closely with first-time students and bring them into the summer program for a 6-week welcome introduction into college. And during the 6 weeks, they will either be one of the 3 paths. And not only do they do the mathematics, because as much as we all love mathematics, we also know that students need additional support, especially on the realm of soft skills. And I'm talking about skills like relationship building, interdependence, responsibility, time management. And we find that it's those soft skills that, if introduced to college students at an early age, can be very beneficial for them in the long run. So we pair a lot of workshops, a lot of teaching that focuses around those themes to enhance the experience that students have over the summer in the Summer Bridge program. Excuse me. Okay. So just some key findings and facts that, you know, we know TMCC, just like pretty much every college out there, that remediation tends to be, a challenge in terms of students being college math and English ready when they first transition into college. Hence why the Summer Bridge program always has the math component, because we have found that in helping students, start off on the right track with mathematics, it tends to be a really good indicator of their persistence rates throughout their college career. We also find that it's not a one-size-fits-all type of program, and no program should be. Every student is different. Every student comes to us with different life experiences and different levels of, academic and personal readiness to be successful in college. So utilizing multiple strategies and multiple initiatives is really what allows us to individualize the services that we provide to students as best as possible. We really, really try to get to know each student on a personal level. I really do want to say that our coordinator for the program, Jen Sarko, who, by the way, I had to make take a day off because she wants to be here all the time, but she's been working really hard over the past couple of months putting together the summer program. So she's not here today because I made her take a day off, and hopefully she's resting. I know she's checking her emails, but thank you, Jen. I also want to say that anytime that I'm asked about a program that really, really centers around partnerships and support campus-wide, Success First has to be at the top of the list, because this program is possible thanks to every single administrator on campus, thanks to the foundation's office, institutional research who helps us track all of our data, facilities. I mean, everyone on this campus is somehow involved in the preparation and planning of this program. So I would never say that, this program is successful because of one department or one initiative. This belongs to all of us. And I think that that's why, we continue to host it every year, because every faculty member, every administrator has, amazing ties to the program. And I'm very grateful to everyone that participates, because without you, we wouldn't be able to make this happen. One of our partnerships, the Embry program, which it belongs to our Dean of Sciences, Dr. Julie Ellsworth, allows us to have very substantial support from Embry, which is a grant. And this grant allows us to bring in tutors, and it also allows us to incorporate a very substantial STEM component into Summer Bridge. because as we all know, STEM fields are really important, and we need more students to be interested in those fields. So we really try to emphasize, education in STEM and incorporate that into Success First as much as possible to encourage young people or first-time students to go into those fields or have an interest in those fields as they choose their college majors. Or College Success course, EPY 101, again, that's where we teach all the soft skills, all the, with many responsibilities about self-exploration, responsibility, interdependence that we feel, and based on student testimonials mostly. Last week on Thursday, those of you that were here will remember that we had some student speakers. And when they talked about the program, a lot of what they talk about are things like, I learned to believe in myself in the program. I learned about college resources. I learned, about time management and exploration of majors. And a lot of those key components, we believe, come from courses like EPY 101. I've already talked about the importance of math preparation, but I want to show you this slide. I keep been forgetting to change it because I get so excited. My apologies. This is an older slide, and I chose this purposefully because I wanted to show you that initially when the coordinators of the program were looking at what courses to teach in the summer, what we know from data from years past is that students who concentrate on math and English just tend to be better prepared throughout their first year in college. We did have one summer where we offered both math and English, but that did not work out too well. It was a little too much for students. So we decided to just keep the mathematics because that was a better connection to the STEM programs that we had with our IMBRI partnership. But that's also my way of saying that we really try to take a look at data to make decisions. We really try to take a look at student experiences to guide programming and coordination of the program. So data, testimonials from students and program participants definitely help us make decisions for years to come and really to make adjustments to the program that we'll feel will be beneficial to all students. This is Mo. Hey, Mo. He's at our office all the time, but I want to share, the reason why we do this, and that is persistence, retention, and of course graduation. So historically, we know that student participants, and I do want to say that it's really important for me to highlight that the students that participate in this program are selected for a reason. They are, again, underrepresented students. 70% of our student participants qualify for Pell, which means that they come from low-income families. Now, the reason why we don't have 100% Pell students, it's actually meaningful, and I'm gonna share a story with you that hopefully helps you understand why. We had a young man from Reed High School apply to the Summer Bridge program in 2018, and his family contribution based on the FAFSA was actually very high. So he would not qualify typically he would be a student that would not qualify for Summer Bridge. His counselor at his high school called Jen, who is her program coordinator, to say, hey, student, let's call him John, received a call saying that he didn't qualify for Bridge, but to do X, Y, or Z. And she was actually very concerned about that because, he was a good student and they really felt that he would be a good fit. So Jen explained that unfortunately he didn't meet the qualifying requirements due to financial and et cetera. And the counselor, and Jen tells me this, she says, the counselor stayed quiet for about 10 seconds and then she said, Jen, this student comes to our food pantry every single day. If he does not have a meal here, we're not sure that he's gonna have a meal when he goes home. So it's situations like that always we keep in mind because an estimated family contribution does not always tell you the whole story, right? There are students out there that on paper may seem that they should have sufficient funds or sufficient resources to be financially stable in college, but we don't know. In this case, we found out that this particular student had been homeless for a while and he didn't have really a connection to his family. That's why we make allowances in Summer Bridge, because it takes us a whole year to recruit students, and we really take a look at each student individually to identify students that we feel would benefit the most from participating in this program. So you know, it's a labor of love, and really trying to look at students and determining who we are able to be the most impactful for. I would tell you that it would be a lot easier, and our data would be higher if we didn't do that, right? Because we know that some students are more prepared for college than others, but that's not the mission of this program. That's not what this program was created, so we always try to keep that in mind. Finally, just like to share some data on graduation, and what you will see here in the orange is that students who participate in the program on average graduate at least twice the rates as students who do not participate in the program. I also want to tell you that, am I satisfied with this data? No, I want to see 100% of our students succeed, and so does our Vice President of Student Services and Diversity, and so does Dr. Hilgerson. So we are always reminded that we always need to do our best to make sure that we don't leave any students behind, and we absolutely do our best. There are some challenges. I told Nate a couple weeks ago when I talked to him that a new challenge for us this year, even though the economy in the area we're doing well, there's lots of job opportunities, we've had the most number of students decide not to participate in the program than we've ever had in the past. And their stories were very similar, which were, I gotta work. You know, my family needs me to work. I can't take 6 weeks off and not be here. And as a matter of fact, we always tell students, hey, you're taking 6 college credits in 6 weeks. You should probably not be working. And when we ask students who, hey, if you're working, raise your hand, 60 to 70% of our students work. So after they complete the program here, they're going out to find jobs. So again, that's the population that we're dealing with from the very beginning. And to see them graduate at these rates, it's pretty outstanding. And again, when we talk to each student about why they persist and decide to continue, a lot of their stories center around success coaching, around support services that they received at TMCC, and of course, my personal favorite, which is that when they walk through those doors on the first day of school, they already feel like they belong. They've been here, they know this is home. They already feel like this is for them. And I think more than anything else, that's what's been impactful over the years and, has led to the program being as successful as it has. Again, other states in the country have tried this. They have not been successful, but TMCC has. So I think that's very commendable, and thanks to many people. But here are some requirements that we tell students. We believe in high expectations. Just because students come from low-income backgrounds or they're underrepresented or they're first generation in the family, that's never taken into consideration when it comes to high expectations and expecting great things from every single student, and we believe that that's important. So we do want students to complete 30 units per year. Now, some students, that'll be 15 credits per semester. Some students who need to work, it's best that they take classes in the summer, but we do try to keep track of that. We also know that student participants have higher grade point averages, they persist on higher rates, they graduate at higher rates than students. There are many requirements that they have to complete throughout their first year, so they have to meet with a success coach at least twice per semester. They have to attend workshops like, Flames workshops for financial literacy, of course, academic advising. We know that's really critical. Last year, I made all my students make appointments with not only the Writing Center, but I also made them go to their teachers or professors' office hours. So that was one of the requirements that I checked in. Even if they didn't need any help, I just wanted them to go in and say hi. So we practiced how to say hi. Believe it or not, students don't know how to do that. So it's really, really, it's really good. Again, before I end, I just shout out to our community for their amazing support. in making this program happen. It is a program that requires a lot of resources, and TMCC, of course, is incredibly supportive, but the scholarship, tuition, books, materials, a lot of that is thanks to the TMCC Foundation and our community. May I answer any questions?
Can I make one comment?
Absolutely.
Well, as usual, another wonderful example of TMCC staff. Thank you, Yuli.
Thank you.
Yes, I also wanted to mention that one of the legislative topics is funding for summer school. Currently, summer programs do not receive state funding. So all of the monies are either student tuition. In a program like this, it's all based on foundation donations, and the program runs at about $4,000 per student for the summertime, and that includes the tuition and the books and the lunches and this, you know. And so we will be asking for your help to spread the word among state legislators that it is time to provide some funding, even if it is in select programs, for community college students and college administrators like me. You know, there's a tension now. If we offer it in the summer, well, geez, we're actually would make a lot more money to run the college if we offered that same thing in the fall. So there you have it. And again, Nevada's a little behind on this. I mean, most of the states I've worked have had state funding in the summer. It was treated no differently than the rest of the school year. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you very
questions?
much. Appreciate the presentation and great work. Okay, moving right along, because we have already covered agenda item number 9, we're going to go to agenda item number 10, which is TMCC directions. This will address NISHI goals 1, access, and goal 2, success. It is an update on NISHI and TMCC budgets for the upcoming legislative session, and it will be presented by Jim New, VP Finance and Administration. So welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and good morning to everybody. I was telling Vice Chancellor McKinnon he was going to miss the best. They saved the best for last, and he's going to walk out on me. I imagine that. But my task here today is to try to educate everybody on how the biennial budget for TMCC is developed as part of the NSHE system. And it was a good task because it helped me, as I dug into the numbers, understand much more clearly how some of the budget is developed. Our biennial budget is being developed right now for a presentation to the legislature in their 2019 session. And it is based on the actual performance that we just came through for fiscal year 18. So the numbers that we generated for fiscal year 18 form the foundation for our fiscal year 20 and 21 budgets. So I'll walk you through some of these numbers, and hopefully they will make sense to you. But the first thing that I have to define, I did a test drive of this presentation to the deans the other day, and they were nodding along and they were getting it. And I thought, oh, I'm doing really well. And then I realized as I was looking at it this morning, there's some inside baseball stuff here that the deans would get, but somebody from outside of the system of higher education might not get. And the very first thing that I want to call to your attention is that term up there, weighted student credit hours. The weighted student credit hour is a value that is assigned to individual courses or prefixes at the college, such as English, English 101, English 201, etc., or manufacturing, the manufacturing technologies classes. The state has assigned, or the system of higher education has assigned, certain weights based on what we perceive to be the expense of delivering those classes. So English 101 has an instructor and they take in 27 students. History has an instructor and they take in 40 up to 35 students, I believe, is our limit at the community college. And they don't have a lot of other expenses beyond that. Whereas you take a diesel technology class, for example, Well, a diesel technology class has a lot of overhead. It requires a very large space to work in, it requires expensive equipment, and to top it all off, we cannot take in 40 students at a time. Generally speaking, we don't want to take in much more than 20 students at a time because it's very hard to manage that, it's very hard to equip that. And so a history class will receive a weight of 1.0, whereas up until last fiscal year, a diesel class received a weight of 2.0. So it was a recognition that the diesel class was more expensive to operate than the history class. So that's what a weighted student credit hour is. The state comes up with a weighted student credit hour rate, and for every student that completes an English class, let's say the rate is $100, for every student that completes the English class, we are calculated to receive $100 per credit. For every student that completes a diesel class, however, we get $200 per credit. Now, it's not a funding formula, it's a distribution formula, and I'll explain that a little bit more as we go along. So as I said, our budget is based on last year's performance, and last year's budget was based on fiscal year 16's performance. So we always go to the first year of the prior biennium to get our basis going forward. So our fiscal year 18 base budget comes from fiscal year 16, I'm sorry, and you can see it was approximately $32 million. We also received, we were also approved for $2.7 million for cost of living adjustments for all the full-time employees on campus. However, we have to share in that cost. The state doesn't give us all the money to cover that, so we had to cover a little over $500,000 from our own budget. And then we also received a CTE enhancement. And this is going to come into the discussion a little further on down. But in fiscal year, actually the current fiscal year, we received $2.5 million. Recall that I said that the diesel program got a weight of 2.0. In the last legislative session, we convinced the legislature and the system of higher education that it really costs us much more to teach that diesel class and other classes like it than it does to teach that history class because of the overhead that we have. And so in response to that, they gave us an enhancement, and an enhancement in terms of the system of higher education is just extra money. It's not part of our base, it's just extra money. However, we're going to try to get this into our base going forward because the reality is those courses are going to continue to cost us more. So we got $2.5 million, and so our basis that we started with was just about $36.6 million. But then the system of higher education says your caseload growth, you didn't grow as fast as we thought you were going to grow. Therefore, we're going to reduce your basis by $324,000 and change. And that was a problem. Believe me, that was a problem. And actually, this number started out larger, and we found an error, and so it was reduced. But let me explain what the caseload growth is. The caseload growth is the difference between what we were funded for and what actually happened. So keep in mind that we started with fiscal year 16 numbers. The first column there is student credit hours. So we start with student credit hours, and then we apply weights to determine how many weighted student credit hours we had. Overall, for fiscal year 16, we had 172,000 credit hours. And of those 172,000, just under 8,000 were the CTE credits that we talked about. They include things like manufacturing, transportation, construction, three very critical areas that the governor's office has identified as places we have to train more people. Now, in fiscal year 16, we received a weight of 2.0 for those classes. And for all the other student credit hours, when you take them and you compare the weighted student credit hours and everything, on average we get a weighting of about 1.15. Because there are some classes that get 1.0, there are some classes that get 1.5, and there are other classes that were not part of the CTE group that get 2.0 as well. So all total, in fiscal year 16, when you do the math, we ended up with about 205,000 weighted student credit hours for fiscal year 16. Okay? For our budget in fiscal year 18, the legislature agreed to take the CTE and increase the weight to 4.0. So I'm looking right here, here, and here. So you can see the weighted student credit hours increased double for the CTE classes. So in other words, what the system was saying is, we don't expect your enrollment necessarily to grow. You're going to have the same number of student credit hours. We're going to budget you for the exact same number of student credit hours that in fiscal year 18 that you had in fiscal year 16. But because we increased the weight on your CTE classes, your weighted student credit hours are going to grow. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So enrollment hasn't changed. It's just that we're going to get more because the weighted student credit hours grew. So for fiscal year 18, we received a budget that was based on 221,000 weighted student credit hours. And the weighted student credit hour rate that year was, or this year is $156 per weighted student credit hour, generating around 34.4 million and change. And then, but the reality is, so we received state funding of around 35 million. In reality, in fiscal year 18, we only generated 218,000 weighted student credit hours. And so the state said, well, you know, we really should have only funded you $34.1 million. So because we gave you extra money in fiscal year 18 and fiscal year 19, we're going to take that money away from you in fiscal years 20 and 21. Okay. Yes.
And part of the problem is there was one transition year where we were being asked by the governor's office to provide manufacturing training in the summer for Tesla and Panasonic, and they were also willing to give the students the tuition dollars, so like a scholarship to anyone who wanted, so you don't want to say no to that, but we lost FTEs.
Right, we don't
So-
we don't get to count the summer
'Cause
enrollment in these.
Yeah, now we do in manufacturing, right? That was added, trying to remember what year that began.
Not in summer.
Are you sure?
The only thing we have funded in summer right now is nursing.
You're right, that's on the docket. I'm
That's on the
sorry. Yes,
docket
I
going
apologize.
forward, and
Yeah.
that will
Yeah,
come
that's
up
one
too.
of the requests, is that to the legislators, that NSHE did not agree to ask for, meaning Board of Regents, they did not say we want all community college courses to receive state funding in the summer, but they did agree to certain areas and high demand areas, including manufacturing. But it really is a conundrum, because on the one hand, the students have an opportunity to avail themselves of education for free, right? The manufacturing entities are saying, we need these employees yesterday, so we end up doing this. But if we would have waited till fall, we may not have taken such a big hit.
Exactly.
So anyway, big flaw in the model. Thank you, Jim.
You bet.
Jim, out of curiosity, the actual number of 218,000, is that because of a lower number of students that are in the pipeline, or is it because of the mix?
I imagine it's a mix, Michonne. Just the number of credits that students took from us last year declined. And our enrollment, and this is true across the country for community colleges, and it's also a problem that is sticking in the back of my head with this funding formula. Enrollment in good times at community colleges is countercyclical. When the economy is going well, our enrollment goes down. When the economy is doing poorly, our enrollment goes up, and that was very true here. Our enrollment skyrocketed during the recession. The problem, how diplomatic, Nate's gone, I can talk. Okay. The problem with our funding formula in Nevada is we measure the universities and the community colleges with the same yardstick, but the dynamics of those two types of institutions are different. The universities have this nice steady trajectory of growth, but the community colleges fluctuate. The problem is when the community colleges go down in enrollment, and our funding formula is based on enrollment. Don't let anybody tell you it's just based on completions, because without enrollment, you're not going to get the number of completions you need. So in the years that our enrollment dips, the pie that they divide, and that's how it's done. It's not a funding formula, it's a distribution formula. It's a distribution formula that we apply to a pie that the legislature gives us in the biennium, and we divide it up like that. Well, the pie is really nice and big in good economic times when our enrollment is down. And so since our enrollment's down, our slice of that big pie gets reduced, while the slice of the big pie goes to the share for the universities goes up. So their base budget gets to grow at a much more substantial rate than ours does. So here's the conundrum. When ours is up, that pie shrinks. So when we get a bigger slice of the pie, it's a smaller pie. And it's an income gap. The rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. I mean, we just don't get to keep up with the universities. And that's been sticking in my craw since I analyzed these numbers. So, and it's a problem with using the same yardstick to measure two different types of institutions with different dynamics. That's really the bottom line on it. Okay? I'm glad Nate's not here. So. And please, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay. So now what we did is we determined a basis for the institutions across the system, like I just described. And we did, the system office, the Board of Regents, take that same number for every institution, they add it up. There are these things called carve-outs. To be honest, the carve-outs don't affect TMCC, so I couldn't explain them adequately to you if I tried. I just haven't bothered to dig into them. But they said, okay, from the general fund allocation, we need $494 million. Then they looked at everybody's weighted student credit hours, added them all up. They divided the general fund revenue by the weighted student credit hours, and going forward for fiscal years 20 and 21, this is that problem I said. It's a good year, so the weighted student credit hour rate went up, but our enrollment didn't go up at the same time, so the pie's bigger, but the universities are going to get a much bigger share. So our weighted student credit hour rate in the next biennium will be about $166. Whereas in the current biennium, we're operating at 156. And the biennium before that, it was 140 something. And the biennium before that, when we were busting out, was 130. So, I'll explain this. I probably shouldn't put this slide in. But recall, my first slide gave you a number like that when we added everything up and we took out the caseload growth. And then the state applies the weighted student credit hours to our actual enrollment, our weighted, and we came up with that number. So that top number, that 36 million, 0.3, well, they're both 36.3, 36,315,000 is our actual working budget, the base budget for the biennium. That's our base. That is a permanent addition to our base budget. Assuming, I got to qualify this assumes that what you see here that's been adopted by the Board of Regents makes it out of the legislature looking like that, which is, I can guarantee it's not going to look like that. But this gives us a clear direction of where we're moving to. Now, on top of the base budget, the system also funds enhancements, as I was explaining. This year, we're asking for a couple of different enhancements. One is called capacity building, and we've had capacity building enhancements in the past. They don't become part of the permanent budget, but sometimes they continue to fund these, and they have grown over the last couple of years. So for fiscal year 20, we're asking for $1.7 million. And a capacity enhancement is simply for us to address things that are happening. Where do we need to apply this money to address things that aren't part of the base budget? In other words, they said, we want you to move students quickly through their math and English before they move on to other classes. So we're pouring more money into math and English to get more instructors, more sections to move them through. The other thing, as President Hilgerson mentioned, is that we're going to go for some funding for summer school. Now, that was a shrinking number. We started out with a much bigger number because we were going to try to get every class that we ever offered in summer funded by the state. And as the budget picture became clearer and clearer, it has shrunk. So in the second year of the biennium, we're asking for an increase in the capacity building and the summer school. So in the first year, we're only asking for a fraction of the capacity building. And that means that we will get $38 million if it goes through as it's proposed. Also in the second year, there's $39 million, and I call that our assured budget, because if it gets approved, they're going to say, yes, this is coming your way. But down at the bottom, there's a performance pool. And we've had a performance pool, but I won't go into the details about it. It didn't really generate a lot of performance. It was a carve-out. They gave us the budget and they said, okay, here's your budget, but we're going to take 20% out of that, and you got to prove to us that you deserve it. And they said, so tell us how you're going to perform to that rate so you get that money back. Well, obviously, we're going to do what we can. You know, we're not going to pick something that's really going to make us stretch to get that money, because we're building it into our budget already. We have to get there. What we're proposing to the legislature is we make this a true stretch target. In other words, if we get to this target that we've never been able to achieve before, we think we deserve that money, or at least a fraction of it, depending on how well we perform. And so we have the potential of getting $40 million in state allocation in the second year. So far, so good? Now, the state budget, or our operating budget, is not just what's allocated to us from the state. Approximately 2/3 of our operating budget comes from the state. The other third comes from the registration fees that we collect. And this is just basically a summary of the registration fees. We have been approved for 4% registration fee increases in the next 2 years, 4% per year over the next 2 years. So our current rate at $98.75 in fiscal year 20 will increase to $102.75, and then in 21 it'll increase to $106.75. And we also collect some additional fees like the tech fee, and we have the fitness center fee, et cetera. So our revenue for that in fiscal year 20 is around $20 million. 19.8. Fiscal year 21, it will grow to 20.5 million. Now, this assumes that our enrollment stays the same as what we had in fiscal year 18. All of this is calculated on the same number as what we just turned in. And we also have some upper division credits. Last year, we generated 540 student credits in upper division classes. Those numbers should grow, because our bachelor's degrees are now starting to come in to their third and fourth years, the ones that were pre-established, and then we're going to add some more coming up. So those numbers will grow. So overall, the total annual operating budget for the 2 years is in the $60 million range. And it's not bad. It's not bad. I complain a little bit about it, but our budgets have been going up. And Lisa asked me to tell you, this is not in your packet because I added these this morning. But this shows the growth of our budget from the 15-16 academic year projected out to 2021. And you can see that we've grown from approximately 31 million total almost to 40 million. So it's not terrible. We're on an upward trajectory. It's just that the universities, that trajectory is steeper. But when you take a look at the funding versus our enrollment, you can see in 15-16 we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,200 FTE annualized, and it has declined. And again, we are projecting the same FTE across the board here. That's just how we build the budget. But the red line shows the expenditure per FTE based on the state's allocation. Not the expenditure, just the allocation from the state that we're receiving.
I just wanted to add an element that is happening in the community that we're seeing that could potentially help with enrollment, and that is that there are more and more companies that are looking at part-time employment, full permanent employment, but part-time. So because they're struggling to find workers, they're considering every option they can to be able to accommodate workers' schedules and to reach workers in different places that they might not have been able to incorporate into the workforce previously. So companies are starting to talk about, 2 part-times equals 1 full-time, greater flexibility with schedules, allows for more time for either education or family. And so it's a trend that we're seeing as we're out in the community that might somehow factor into the people going to school and being able to support themselves via that part-time employment at the same time.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great, because it is difficult to juggle, a full-time job plus, higher education has really emphasized the need for students to go to school full-time, and that, again, using the same yardstick for everybody. That's just not a model that's effective for the community colleges. It really isn't. The bulk of our students are part-time, and we don't get rewarded for doing a good job for part-time students.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
What you just said, the bulk of the students are part-time, but that's not really factored into the funding formula?
Well, if you take a snapshot of the funding formula, in any given year, it appears fair because we're all, getting the same weighted student credit hour. But because our students we have more part-time, and maybe my statement that the bulk of our students are part-time, it may not be literally true, but as compared to universities, we have a much larger percentage of part-time students. And we know that part-time students do not reach completion in terms of getting a degree or a certificate of achievement at the same rate that university students or full-time students do. Okay? So just by its nature, we're not going to have as many completions as the universities will, because university students, by and large, are full-time students for the most part. And there's nothing built into the formula that acknowledges that, because our formula is built on students completing a class. Weighted student credit hour is not awarded for a student who enrolls in the class. It's awarded for the student who completes the class. And so, so we have a greater number of students who either stop attending or they simply disappear subsequently, so we don't get as many graduates, and that is built into the performance pool portion of the budget. So again, we're measuring everything with the same yardstick, but it doesn't take into account that there are differences between the characteristics of the 2 different types of institutions.
I think Dr. Higgleston would like to add to this.
So one of the recent topics that my leadership team and I talked very seriously about, and it's one of the topics that we'll be bringing in our planning meetings next week with other managers and faculty and staff on campus, is really figuring out how to keep the part-time student fully engaged. Because psychologically, you're working, maybe you're working 30 hours a week, and you've signed up for 6 credits, and you've been doing that for a year and a half, and then something happens to your family or to your, something stressful at work, and you say, I'm just gonna not take courses next term. I'm just gonna stop out for a term. It's only, I'm only enrolled in 6 credits anyway. Unfortunately, it's harder for that person to re-engage once that occurs. You know, I've met students at every college I've worked in, TMCC is no exception, who have been coming in and out of TMCC for a decade. You know, so I think what we need to do better as an institution is figure out how do we get into the heads of those students and encourage them to never stop out, and better yet, encourage them to commit to full-time and make the necessary arrangements. But if they can't do that, I mean, the worst decision they could make is, oh, I'll just stop out for a semester, because the data tells us that doesn't look good for them at that point. Does that help? And I think that affects our funding. I mean, here's an example. Right now, we are up 44% in new students. That's huge. But we're down probably equal in continuing students. So a lot of our students did the first year, and for some reason, between the end of spring first year and the fall second year, they're not coming back, and we need to figure that out. So we'll be using the word retention a lot. We think faculty need to become the leaders of the retention effort, because it's the faculty who are interacting with the students in class every single day, right? And so we've really got to do more work and more focus, and that's going to be the focus for TMCC leadership, faculty leaders, faculty and staff this upcoming year and beyond. So I hope that answers the question.
Can I believe Deborah has a question?
Thank you. Deborah Beiersdorf and Jim and Dr. Hilgerson. I guess just maybe more curious as we gear up for the next legislative session, and use the word we, Jim. So is the we other community colleges in the state? What will it look like taking the message of what looks to be an inequity in funding forward? Just curious how that works.
Do you want to answer that?
No, I don't. Actually, here's what I will say. That NSHE, and I really respect this, once the Board of Regents vote on a platform, I'm obligated as the president to follow that platform, and I will. You know, going outside of that platform is not appropriate. But I think it's important to share some of the details with individuals who may be interacting with legislators and other important folks to try to flesh out the message. Some of the elements of it that at a certain point in time, you know, Jim and I really can't really flesh out in a way that's appropriate for our roles and for our, you know, our willingness to respect the role of the Board of Regents and the role of the NSHE staff. So I think part of the challenge in any state system is asking the right questions. I do that.
Board Member Macklin, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'll go ahead.
Okay,
Quick
John
question,
Thurman.
is our non-completion rate similar to other community colleges around the country?
We actually are doing, we're in the top 150 in the country. There's about 1,047 community colleges. We were trying to get in the top 10, but as Estella said, we must have been number 11. So we'll just keep trying. But the Aspen Institute is a national entity that does a really thorough job of looking at really that question. Right now, the national average is about 24%. We're at about 31%.
Okay.
And the hard thing for us is we are way ahead of the other 3 community colleges in the state of Nevada. And NSHE is still telling us, you just still need to increase more than the rest. And yet we're not quite, you know, we need to get pretty creative at this point, because every NSHE institution has to continue to beat their benchmark, their national benchmark, their baseline benchmark. Our baseline is so high, it's going to be a challenge for us to figure out how to beat that benchmark without something different, either a great idea or more money or more staff. One of the things that I would love to do is scale up the Summer Bridge program you heard about today. Right now, we're running about 140 students in that program. I would love to run 1,000 students in that program. I certainly cannot do that if those 6 credits that they take don't get any state funding in the summertime, right? So part of what we need to do as an institution is think about what can we scale up, these programs that we know have a much higher success rate than the tradition. How can we scale that up so that we can continue to inch our way to even more improvements to student completion and success.
And if I can expand on that a little bit, in terms of the budget, let me clarify two terms. There's retention, which means a student enrolls in a class and completes the class. With a high retention rate, you get more weighted student credit hours. So that's the basis of the budget. The performance pool that I said, they carve out part of our budget that's already been allocated, but they say, you got to earn this back. We use our graduation rate, which is one of the highest in the nation, really is. We're very proud of our graduation rate. It's definitely the highest in this region. And but that's only a portion of the budget. The full pie is primarily just a student completing a class.
My question then, relative to this issue of non-completions. Has it been analyzed from the point of view of, is there a pattern to the types of classes that people enroll in, stay in, and classes that people enroll in and drop out?
Yes. And the biggest puzzle that, honestly, I've been reflecting on this for about 20 years, is in the United States, every college graduate is expected to understand the language of math, which is algebra. American students, in general, really struggle with the language of math, which is algebra. So the greatest challenge for students in our country, and it's certainly no different at TMCC, is preparing for, through remedial math, and then passing college-level algebra or statistics, and college-level statistics has a lot of algebra underneath it, right? And it's just a real problem for our culture. It really is. So that's definitely I think the greatest challenge nationally and here in Reno and Sparks is getting through that math requirement. And UNR and UNLV, they have the same issue. Right now, and this is an unpleasant statistic, even advanced diploma earners from Washoe County School District, about 30% of them who head to the University of Nevada, Reno, need remedial math. They're still taking 10th grade algebra in order to master that to the level required to place successfully into university level college algebra. So this is really...
This actually, what you're saying, it actually really applied to me. I won't go into my whole story, but basically, when I was in Vietnam, I came to the realization that I needed to take a lot of math classes that I had not taken in order to pursue an accounting degree. I mean, I won't go into the whole story about it, but the reason I'm asking this is because I'm wondering, the students who are doing this, particularly with regards to mathematics, is there a missing piece in terms of how it's marketed, so that when students are enrolling in those classes, they really are made to understand the relevance of what they're going to be studying with what they're going to be doing subsequently, as opposed to it simply being, well, you've got to take this in order to meet the entrance requirements to get into this curriculum. And they don't really make a connection between what they're going to be learning and how it's going to be applied.
Yeah, and in higher ed circles, we call that, math courses need to be contextualized. They need to be talked about in a way that connects it to real life application. And that's, we've got some faculty here that do a marvelous job of that. That doesn't mean all faculty do a marveless job of that.
Well, that literally happened with me.
Right,
because the first time I took calculus, I was taking purely a theoretical course. Made no sense to me whatsoever. When I found a curriculum that actually related calculus to solving real world problems, suddenly the light came on, and I stuck with it. I mean, that literally is what happened.
Right, yeah.
I dropped out the first time because it was not relevant.
Right, you found the motivation and the understanding. The other thing too that I think we need to work on just culturally, and I bet you're doing this in the school district, is I can't tell you, and I have 3 children, and I'll, you know, to not in this state, so this, I'm not speaking for Nevada, I'm speaking for another state in our great country, but who had elementary school teachers who would stand up and say, you know, I hate math, but we're going to have to do this. And so when our teachers are kind of, rather than saying, I love math and you're going to love math too, I think one of the things that I see in higher ed is a real attention to teacher education programs and messaging and marketing and all of those things. And frankly, I see change in our culture. I can't tell you how many students I meet at this campus that are majoring in engineering. And it's so awesome. And many of these kids that I talk with, they're Latino, Latinas, and they're majoring in engineering. I think that's a huge shift. So I think we're making progress in our country, but I also think it's cultural, and it's a great puzzle for us who are in public higher education.
When you mentioned that, I'll have to add this. When I was in graduate school, I ended up teaching calculus to electrical engineering, first-year electrical engineering students. And if somebody had said to me 4 years prior to that I'd be doing that, I would have said, are you crazy?
Yeah, right, yeah, yes, it's great.
So this is a great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll need to move on into the agenda. Thank you,
Thank
Jim,
you.
very much
Yeah,
for
great
your
job, Jim.
presentation
Thanks.
and the plain English explanation of what I know is a bit of a complicated process and formula and mechanism. So thank you very much. So we're moving on to agenda item number 11, which is new business. Any input from the board is appreciated for any future agenda items. I have a personal item I'd like to throw out there for consideration, and that is the transfer process for certain areas of study where there's still work to be done in order to ensure that those that are coming to the community college with the intent of transferring are able to do so without losing credits, losing time spent, and so forth. So any other future agenda items that anyone on the board would like to add for consideration? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to item number 12 on the agenda, which is IAC Council Member takeaways. What we would like to go around the room and discuss are any key points of interest that have gotten your attention from this meeting, and also any opportunities that you see that you may have to support and promote TMCC initiatives out in the community. So we will start with you, Clifton, if there are any other any items you'd like to add about takeaways or action items.
Not really, only a conversation we actually had offline about getting venture capitalists who have some insight into job evolution and how the curriculum here could be developed. So we'll talk about that more later.
Great topic, thank you. How about an update on the Job Center?
Well,
American
I
Job
can
Center.
certainly do that. Part of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act requires that there be a comprehensive one-stop workforce development center. That center is located at Reno Town Mall in conjunction with the Job Connect Center there. We have certainly all the major titles, but we've also brought from HHS, Health and Human Services, child care services into there, adult basic education in there through TMCC and NLC, and so on. So we're kind of developing a big party for that. Grand opening is scheduled for October 12th. We still have some little things to tidy up before we would want to really present it to the entire community. So that's coming along. As far as takeaways, the thing that resonates in my head and has been resonating for some time now is the identification, and several presentations today kind of spoke to that, is how do we identify the skills gap that is needed between what our current working population has and what the current employer base in our community wants, and then how do we address that? That's kind of a continuing conundrum in my head. How do we do that? And having been in a couple of other states recently talking to their workforce development people, same question seems to be on their minds as well.
Thank you. Marissa?
Learned a lot today. And every time I come, I'm just amazed at what TMCC does. But for me, I'm thinking with healthcare and the huge gaps we have in workforce, it's like, what can I do to promote those particular healthcare fields, even if it's a certificate program? What can I do more to engage more of those types of people into that career path?
Can I mention something? Of course. One of the things that several of us have been requesting, and it does not appear to have made the agenda yet, is summer school funding for healthcare fields. We do get summer school funding for nursing. So if you take a nursing class in the summer, the state helps with that. And we get summer funding for science classes as prerequisites to nursing. But there's many health careers that we do summer programs, courses, trainings, and again, that's unfunded, and that has not been added to the list yet of what we consider high demand. And so you and I can talk more about that.
I would
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but thank you, TMCC.
Thank you. John?
Just a couple of thoughts. I had some personal views about funding that pretty much paralleled what we heard today, and just having been around the legislature a little bit. When you talk to somebody and say, we don't like the way this is funded and it ought to be done differently, those legislators say, we want you to come in and put that on the record in a public testimony. And I just thought I would point out that that would put you in a rather awkward political position if that person was on this board. I suppose you've probably given a little thought to that.
You know, yes, I just think it's not that awkward of a position. I think it's more awkward when it's a president or a vice president who's not is going out of the parameters that have been agreed to.
Okay, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, well,
I'm just saying that
that's-
that's sort of one of the awkward results.
Right.
But I sort of feel that a great deal more resources should be put here. I think going forward, the value of a four-year college degree will diminish over time, not increase. But anyway, this was interesting to listen to this.
Yeah, thank you.
So from an action item standpoint, EDON is continuing to make connections between business and various departments within TMCC. A lot of that has to do with manufacturing, with the continued influx of manufacturing companies to the region. But we're really working to make one-on-one introductions to get people to come out and take a look at the Applied Technology Center, to actually meet with the deans and professors and so forth. So that's something that we continue to be actively engaged in. And on the logistics side, certainly promoting the Center for Applied Logistics Management and the support of that, and ongoing education for the volumes of entry-level, first-level logistics professionals in the region who really don't have any other opportunity anywhere else to continue their real education in logistics management, supply chain management, in order to be able to move up the wage scale and take advantage of additional positions. So that's just something that EDON continues to be very much focused on. For EDON for the coming year, you will find that we likely have a little bit lower job creation target once our board takes a look and approves that, but a renewed emphasis or increased emphasis on job creation for jobs that are paying greater than $30 an hour. So we'll be putting forward a proposal that will continue to focus on the creation of technology jobs and higher wage jobs in the community.
I'm going to take something really away from this meeting. The Adoptive Ed program and the Men of Color program, I'm going to contact the 8 Rotary clubs in the area and ask them to invite the representative of the Men of Color and maybe one of the young men, as well as Adoptive Ed, and get the word out in the community of these 2 strong programs that those people who are Rotarians are very interested in.
Great, thank you, John.
That's great. You know, I guess the thing that kind of has been running through my head is this whole summer funding. Because it keeps coming up, it's obviously very important to you. I mean, you've got a lot of good things happening here, and it kind of comes back to your original comment of prioritizing. Where can you get the biggest bang for the buck? And so on the summer funding side, I guess I don't know enough to really speak to it, but I don't know how you arrived at 900,000.
Neither do we.
So what happened, offline, I can say that it relates to certain zip codes that are, instead of saying, we're gonna fund all your summer programs, they're saying, let's ask the legislators to fund just some of your summer programs, and then it was based on past enrollments in those areas. Would that be fair?
We haven't seen the specific way that the
Right.
system office calculated those yet. I asked for it the other day because I wanted to see exactly which courses they put into that calculation. Because
Right.
like I said, it started out being close to 2 million for us, and then it shrunk a little bit more, and then it shrunk a little bit more because they said, well, we can't fund it all, we'll only fund this many, and then it went down again. And so we're not exactly positive which classes they counted from last summer.
Yeah.
As part of it, to come up with their number.
I mean, you know, again, you have all these different things going on in the summer that you're trying to fund, but I just wonder if you could build a bigger support group of businesses that are going to be advocating for you because they need it.
It's not like business
it kinda
closes
goes
during
back-
the summer, right?
Yeah, summer doesn't mean anything when you're in the
Business.
workforce.
Right.
And so even though I love the Success First program, and I think that's a key piece of it, if you could wrap that in, though, with the idea that there are just certain CTE courses that you have got to be maintaining through the year, that it doesn't operate, and you've got employers standing with you going,
I think that's a great idea.
fund it.
Yeah.
You know, again, it comes back to what's going to move the needle for you.
Right.
They're all good, but what's, you know, you could, so that's kind of
Thank you.
It's running through my head.
Deborah.
Last but not least, and I've got a few points that I wanted to make and things I wanted to share, but I wanted to echo what Councilmember Brown said. When I come here, I learn lots of things as well, what the community's doing and what the community college is doing. So district very much appreciates its partnership with Truckee Meadows. So some takeaways for me, I appreciated the presentation on your diversity initiatives. I was telling Michonne earlier, the district is starting work. We've formed under the Superintendent an Equitable Access Task Force with the idea being, what are the things that might be in place in the district, inadvertently in some cases, that might be keeping or putting up barriers for students to be able to access career tech ed programs, advanced placement, international baccalaureate fees, and things like that. So I'm real excited about that work that we're starting this year. I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Dalpy. We've worked on good relationships with the Pennington site. And I think as a result of conversations that happened here last year and also within our CTE department, we actually have a position now that will focus solely on dual credit opportunities, which we definitely saw a need for in the school district. It's growing amazingly well. Our high schools love it. We needed to make a commitment to a little better organization on our part. So I think Kyle knows about that, but I'll make sure. But thank you again for the conversation today.
Thank you very much. So we will move on to item number 13 on the agenda, which is public comment. Public comment will be taken during this agenda item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item until the matter is included on an agenda as an item on which action may be taken. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name. The council chair may elect to allow additional public comment on a specific agenda item when that agenda item is being considered. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, I will officially adjourn the meeting. Thank you for being here today and enjoy your weekend.